adjust your set. If your screen looks a little bit different, it's because I've put up a different interface. For those of you who care about such stuff, I've switched us back to the WCS 3.0. I came across a poll that says Starcraft fans prefer it almost 2-to-1 over the Pro 2020 interface that I've been using. But all I really care about is what folks around here prefer. So if you've got a preference, do let me know. Love to hear from you. The version you're looking at right now gives you much better income information, but it's not as good for keeping you up on top of the upgrade situation. The interface is also smaller, which is good or bad depending on your point of view. It doesn't obstruct the action nearly as much, but the production tab is harder to follow, for example. That's a hatch first for Zerg. Our Zerg player has been on a tear as of late. She's out for blood. But that blood isn't merely red, it's Scarlett!
Current world rank 37.
Here comes our extractor pool. No, the drone has second thoughts. Scarlett's going pool before extractor. And there's the extractor, not sure what that switch was all about. I'm interested, but I'm not sure it wasn't just a mistake of the keys. Scarlett's Protoss opponent did not hatch blind. Very classy, he scouted with a gate and go. And now he's going Nexus before core. He's not relying on cheap tricks. I would imagine that's because our Protoss player in the bottom left is calm, cool, and collected. He's not so quick to just pull the trigger!
Current world rank 94.
So we've got ourselves a little bit of a Canadian versus Canadian battle here. And where is this happening? This is from the group stages of Dreamhack North America, summer 2021. Both our players have gone undefeated up to this point, but there's no question who's the favorite here. Scarlett is going to be one tough matchup for TriGGeR. Scarlett's playing pretty greedy here, by the way. She's only made 2 lings to go with her 2 queens. TriGGeR's core completes and he goes for the usual chrono boosted adept with warp gate research. He does have a tech stashing pylon and he's going to use it to put down a Stargate. The Stargate has become one of Protoss's most versatile options for pushing into the late game. Scarlett continues that greed theme and takes her third well under 3 minutes. She's also started up ling speed. TriGGeR's going to head over with his adept to take a look. He's making a stalker behind it. TriGGeR's best matchup is his Zerg play, but he's definitely going to have his hands full with this Zerg, especially if he lets Scarlett get up to some insane number of drones. While the Queen gets some shots off on the Adept before he can even begin his poke. There's only 2 lings to pick up that Shade though. Fortunately, the Queen at the main steps up, and the Shade is forced to dissolve. TriGGeR gets the Scout on the third and then looks to be headed home, taking a shot to the back by the Queen on his way out. It's going to be a Void Ray at that Stargate. TriGGeR's also adding that second gateway to complete his wall. Scarlett's finally adding 2 more lings, but really she's just droning up like crazy here. Neither player has any significant scouting information on their opponent at this point. The Stalker's forced away Scarlett's Overlord. She hasn't lost it though, it's just creeping around the fringes of the Protoss base on the right hand side. Looks like TriGGeR's setting up for his own expansion here. He's gonna try to match greed with greed. Scarlett really doesn't have any ability to stop it. The Zergling's just gonna sit there and watch the expansion. Maybe make a sketch of it with a scratch pad. That is until the Void Ray comes after him. That Void Ray looks kind of miffed. Scarlett didn't give him the free kill by donating her Overlord to him. She's got it stashed back down here and the Overlord missed it. She saved 100 minerals and found out about the Void Ray anyway. I like it. Look how frustrated that Void Ray is. He's looking around. Where's my free Overlord? Initial Overlord with 0 kills? How embarrassing. There, Scarlett's gonna throw him a bone and at least give the poor guy a Zergling. That's a first blood, by the way. Scarlett responds by putting down a Roach Warren. One of the ways that Zerg responds to Void Rays is with that Queen Walk, backed by Ravagers. That all starts with a healthy supply of Roaches. And that could be a good call, because TriGGeR's adding a second Stargate, and his first one's still making more Void Rays. Scarlett is going to start up her lair, possibly for Roach speed, and she's going to add a single Spore at her third base location. But mostly she's making another huge round of drones. She's already up to 50. 50 before 5 minutes. And the 2 Void Rays now swirling around aren't really doing anything to stop that. They are, though, kind of exerting a form of map control, which has been letting TriGGeR go wild on his own worker production. Truthfully, neither player really has much of an army here. If we don't count Scarlett's queens, all she's got is 3 Zerglings. TriGGeR can claim to be playing an efficient game here. He hasn't lost a unit. He's gonna keep teching. He goes for a Twilight and a Forge. Scarlett tries to see if she can get into the natural, but that doesn't work. She winds up suiciding the Ling at the 3rd. The end result just gives her the confidence to go for 9 more drones. And an Evo chamber. I like the SimCity on that. She'll be able to seal that off and protect her natural in the event of a glaive rush. But with our bird's eye view, we all know that's not coming. Scarlett takes a 4th. Both our players have very powerful economies. TriGGeR's gonna use that to power 2 more gates and add a battle duck. We'll see if I'm right, but I think he's looking to add an early storm to deal with the threat that Scarlett could go for Hydras. We've definitely seen her go Hydra against Void Rays before. How about 4 Void Rays versus 3 Queens? Oh, Scarlett reinforces with 4 more and uses Transfuse to save everyone. TriGGeR has to get out of there, almost losing a Void Ray. But he doesn't, and he still hasn't lost a unit. Roach speed underway, as is +1/+1. It's +1 melee though. That doesn't really fit with Roach Ravager. We'll have to see what that's all about. Big time powering by TriGGeR. He's adding 5 more gates. Sorry, make it 7. He's taking it up to 11. He's spinal tapping it. He's also chrono boosting that storm. Scarlett adding not just a Baneling nest, but a spire. Her infestation pit is almost done. And I should have mentioned TriGGeR's finished his robo. Void Rays are going to work on the creep, but the Queen army is shuffling over to block it out. TriGGeR puts down a 4th, which if it gets up will put him on even bases with the Zerg. Scarlett starting a hive tech. It's almost like our players have a no rush 15 agreement going on here. This is a very passive game that I feel like is gonna explode. Oh yeah, I timed that baby. Seriously though, both our players are like collecting all the toys. When our players finally decide to go at each other, I think we're gonna have a pretty high-tech battle. TriGGeR finally loses a unit, and his Stargates are now making Phoenix. Phoenixes, Phoenix Eye. Oh, watch this, Storm's gonna complete, and you can witness Battle Duck do something amazing. If you blinked, you missed it, but when Storm finishes, the visor on the top closes. It's a small detail, but if it's about Battle Duck, you know I'm gonna dig it. Scarlett starts up a 5th, and if it were me playing, I'd think these Phoenixes were hallucinations. TriGGeR stopped production of Phoenixes at 2, so I'm not too sure how they fit in. Scarlett has gone to 91 workers, and she's still droning. She drones on even worse than I do. Scarlett's researching pathogen glands. It's been a while since I've seen Zerg with the luxury of doing that. Yeah, Phoenix not very effective against hatcheries. Phoenixes are good at a lot of things, but not against hatcheries. They just kind of look sad and impotent. TriGGeR's put down a fleet beacon, people. We're getting carriers here. This is feeling like Golden Armada endgame strat. I love it. He's not afraid to go endgame against the best player from his country. And why not? Zergs are still struggling against this build. But on the other hand, it's Scarlett. She's got 92 workers. There you go. Never send a Phoenix to do a Void Ray's job. TriGGeR forces the cancel on the 5th, and it looks like he got his Void Rays all out. Scarlett definitely preparing for endgame as well. She's got the Ultralisk Cavern underway. We're about to hit 9 minutes with no significant combat. Both players are gonna max out. Hold that thought. As soon as I say that, Scarlett attempts a raid on the Protoss 3rd. There's a lot of static defense to burn through though, and that's gonna give Protoss the time to get his army over. It's Charge Lots and Phoenix that arrive first. The Protoss composition will have low mobility. Scarlett responds by making 30 Zerglings. She's also getting the Crackling upgrade. Neural Parasite, Chitinous Plating, +2 armor, +2 melee, +1 air attack. And she's doubled expanding, though one of them is a replacement for the top left base that was crushed. TriGGeR's adding carriers 3 at a time. I'm expecting both players to max out under 10 minutes. That's certainly not unheard of, but it does go to show how robust their economies are. There's the dreaded +2 air attack upgrade for Protoss. Oh, Scarlett taking her brand new cracklings for a little test drive here. That's the adrenal glands upgrade in action for you. What it really does is it reduces the cooldown on the Zergling attack speed. Instead of attacking twice a second, they attack 3 times a second. Or very close to it. Alright, the first round of Corruptor Viper have arrived. So this is so interesting. Scarlett essentially has everything under the sun except for Hydra. TriGGeR was going for classic late game Protoss. The carriers force out Hydras because of anti-air, and then the storm melts the Hydra. And as you can see, Scarlett is not playing into that. Right now she's using abducts and parasitic bombs, mostly because she doesn't have enough corruptors. Oh man, have you ever seen so many Templar using their basic attack before in your life? Those lasers do 4 damage. That's less than a probe. Of course, that's TriGGeR being patient. He's saving that energy. It's gonna be for storms and feedbacks. Nice try, Zealots. There's way too many pokers there. Infester with the fungal, and then the burrow to escape. That was pretty sweet. And then the queens just tear up the rest of the Zealots. Oh, we've got Ultralisk on roller skates, people. This is one of my favorite glitches. It doesn't affect the game in any way, it's just visually comedic. The Ultras look like they're gliding or surfing on the creep. They've also lost their attack animation, so if they stand next to something, its health bar will go down. Oh, this is good play by Scarlett. She's putting the Spore Forest on the right-hand side where the carriers are, the Spine Crawlers on the left where the Zealots are. It's up to TriGGeR to adapt. TriGGeR is looking to finish maxing out on carriers. And he's gonna get +3 air attack before he gets +3 ground. A terrific feedback storm combo. But you'll notice how little the Ultras care. The Ultras are like, I'm on roller skates, dude. Do you think I care if there's a little electricity in the air? That's just the party atmosphere. Scarlett's gonna max out on Lings. Those guys definitely care about Storm. Oh, we got a one-on-one duel here. Zealot versus Roach, I love these. It's gonna be close. Who's got this? With their upgrades, this is so even. What? No! Oh, cheaters! Where was the referee on that play? That was like the WWF. The referee was distracted. And then the Bongo Bros snuck in and smashed a chair over his head. And then TriGGeR decides to reward himself for his bad behavior by researching flux veins. I take back all the things I said early on about his excellent sportsmanship. Scarlett's gonna get revenge with a skating Ultralisk attack. No, the Golden Armada is there to defend. The Ultras are gonna slide away all cash-like. Scarlett's maxed out with 16 Corruptors. She's up against 9 carriers. The Vipers are gonna help even the score with those abducts. Ultralisks are really good at resisting interceptors. Just maybe not when they're getting hit by 48 of them at once. Well, we wanted these ultimate armies and we got them. Just look at that toss main. Baneling crackling on the Protoss 4th. The Templar are there with the Storm. Very well defended by TriGGeR. That could have been so much worse. Wow, the Cracklings can pull down photon cannons backed by shield batteries. That is concentrated DPS. Remember early on when I was wondering why Scarlett was getting melee attack upgrades over ranged attack upgrades? Well, I think I kind of have my answer. And of course the roller skating Ultras benefit from it too. Oh, but actually the glitch is over. The Ultras are back to normal. Darn it, it was fun while it lasted. There's actually 0 drones on those minerals. I think Scarlett recruited every last one into spores. Even still, she's outmining the Protoss. Oh, Banelings! Oh, that was wicked. Oh, and the Cracklings are gonna clean this up. I was gonna say though, it's not like TriGGeR is hurting for minerals here. Oh, it's an Ultralisk trapped by morphing Banelings. That's hilarious, I've never seen that before. Anyway, I was gonna say before I was delightfully distracted, Zerg is out-resourcing the Protoss on gas, and that could be a difference maker. But we'll see. TriGGeR does not appear to be suffering economically whatsoever. His real problem is that Scarlett isn't suffering in the slightest. Oh, Scarlett's looking to change the aforementioned economics. TriGGeR does not want to lose this base. The Storms kill a ton of Zerglings, and he is gonna save this base. Our Protoss player was, you guessed it, just a hair trigger away from suffering a major setback. Instead, he's gonna survive long enough to try to change the dynamic by mixing in Tempests. That's the theoretical answer to the Spore Forest that TriGGeR's struggling with right now. I'm just waiting for him to add tectonic destabilizers. Protoss is doing that now. It took a while, but it's here. Instead, TriGGeR's actually adding a Dark Shrine and a 6th base in a very forward position. This is gonna be a tough hole. He's just a stone throw away from Scarlett's triangular 3rd. He's gonna add the static D, and then it's either gonna be a terrific staging area for his attacks, or it's just gonna be a money pit. As much as I love Static D, my bet's gonna be on the money pit. Hold on, the answer could be neither. We've got the surprise late game attack at the natural where there's no defense. TriGGeR warping in Dark Templar, that's a great way to fill the breach. You can't kill it if you can't see it unless you're a Baneling. Scarlett manually detonates, kills the DTs, and she breaks inside to cause chaos. The Tempests have popped out, but they are not going to be very useful for the cleanup. They don't actually do splash, they have to kill those lings one at a time. Scarlett's doing some serious attention damage. While this is going on, she finishes maxing out with Corruptors and keeps building that bank. These cracklings are awesome, but they are unbelievably cheap. What? It looked like the Zerglings died in the explosion. And it's another wave in the Protoss force. This time the Banelings get the mineral line. Oh, that hurts TriGGeR. His whole expensive armada is premised on having this great economy. Oh, that is a sexy shield battery nest. Those changelings down there, they look like Zealots who just have the good sense not to fight Ultralisks. Scarlett just can't seem to saturate that mineral line. She has to keep remaking her spores. And this would be why. Interceptors versus spores. Ah, finally the Tempest have arrived. This is what they're supposed to be doing, not fighting Zerglings. If TriGGeR can hover over his nest of shield batteries and hit the spore forest at the same time, he's going to be in a good place. The problem is his left flank is collapsing hard. TriGGeR would actually be much better off if he had Void Rays protecting the west side of his base instead of Tempest. Colossi would be pretty useful here too, but that's definitely one thing that TriGGeR does not have. Cannons are good against Zerglings, but not when the Ultras scream for them. I think Scarlett is going to cheat us out of the drama of this great air battle on the right-hand side just by winning the game on the left. With her huge bank, she can just remake those spores all day long. Yeah, TriGGeR's just had to pull his armada to save his base. But now that shield battery nest doesn't have an army to recharge. I feel for TriGGeR. I'm sure he knows exactly what's happening, but he just doesn't have a choice. At this point, he's getting cracked open like a walnut. And as the Lings and Ultras die, Scarlett's remaxing on Corruptors. She also actually has a Greater Spire at this point too, right? So I wouldn't get too stunned if some of them morph into Broodlords. Never mind, Scarlett's way ahead of me. That beautiful shield battery nest is getting torn up without any defenders. TriGGeR's racing back, but then Scarlett's gonna punch him on the left-hand side again. I think TriGGeR's gonna have to do something explosive to try to change his fortunes. He's still got a big gas bank. He could warp in an ungodly number of High Templar. Looks like he's gonna try to shut down those Broodlords. It's 48 Interceptors versus 30 Spores. TriGGeR's using Storms to ward off Scarlett's units. He's got a battery overcharge going to fuel up his armada. And that's gonna let him engage in some deforestation, a little illegal logging, some clear cutting. He's getting the feedbacks on the infestors, but the fungal growths do go off. They're followed by parasitic bombs. He got the infestors, but not the vipers. TriGGeR retreats to his batteries. Scarlett gives chase. Scarlett smells blood in the water. The Corruptors have been waiting all game to do this, and now they are so hungry. My God, there's only 2 Interceptors left. The Golden Armada is not so gold. TriGGeR's gonna recall and pretend he escapes back to Ire. But it's a GG. Scarlett is your winner. And we have a dancing overlord to prove it. Anyways, do stick around, because I think I'm gonna have a few things to show you. So, there's just a couple really cool things I want to highlight in this game. Firstly, there's this little piece of blue and green fireworks art. There's nothing too unique or special about it, it's just kind of purty. It's the kind of effect you only get when charge lots meet Banelings. Is it a kindergarten painting? Is it modern art? You decide. But this here is downright special. Somehow, Scarlett is going to manage to trap one of her Ultralisks in a ring of morphing Banelings. I feel like if you try this 20 times, you wouldn't be able to do it. It's the kind of thing that can only happen by accident. That dude is stuck in there. I mean, think about it. Force fields can't hold an Ultralisk. He's got the massive trait. But a perfect ring of Baneling cocoons? That'll trap him in there. Kinda looks like a mama bird guarding her eggs. I'd say if I didn't think she was going to rip out my spine. This next one's probably just another coincidence, but it looks like a great piece of misdirection. These two Zerglings are going to use the pylon explosion as cover to disappear. It's almost like the villain who pretends to die in an accident. The Zerglings see the Tempest is killing them, so as soon as the pylon blows up, they burrow. And Protoss is going to go right on by. If you look at it in slow-mo here, you can see how insanely perfect the timing is. Even to a third-party observer, they really do look like Zergling corpses. It takes Play Dead to a whole new level. Okay, but I want to get serious for a second because this game really strings together a great story. Now, I'm going to make a lot of assumptions here, so you are free to conclude that this is all sheep doo-doo. But if you watch this game here, Trap vs. Scarlett, Scarlett faces almost the exact same composition, Carrier Deathball Storm. Spoiler alert, Scarlett goes for Mass Hydra and ultimately loses to Trap. She goes on to win the series by avoiding the late game and grabbing her wins early, quite possibly because she knows she hasn't solved Trap's late game. Now, admittedly, TriGGeR is no Trap. TriGGeR Trap, there's got to be a joke in there somewhere, but I promised I would get serious for a second. Anyways, what I'm trying to say is that even though I admit TriGGeR is no Trap, the compositional threat is still one and the same. Now here's my theory. Scarlett's new Zerg teammate on Shopify Rebellion is none other than Coach Lambo. Lambo, of course, has gotten a lot of press for coaching Raynor in advance of his Katowice World Championship run. Now at a time when pretty much every pro Zerg player under the sun was complaining about late-game Protoss composition, i.e. Carrier Deathball Storm, Lambo was the lone voice in the woods saying Zerg had the tools to beat it. And that includes Serral, by the way. Even Serral was very much in the beat Protoss early or lose camp. And when Serral is shying away from late game, you know it's a problem. So I cast this game here, Lambo versus Max Packs, in which Lambo goes late game versus Max Packs, probably deliberately, just to show how it can be done. And what he does is he uses a hugely varied composition, just like Scarlett did in this game, and by that I mean a balanced selection of units that is somehow entirely Hydra-free. And how does Coach Lambo go on to win the big battle at the end? He uses his infestors to force the Protoss Armada to stay clumped together and then hits it with parasitic bombs with his Vipers. They can't separate, they take oodles of damage. Yep, an oodle. It's a highly refined mathematical term. And as you saw, Scarlett set up her infestors very early on in this game. She was planning that end game very early on. So I think, my dear Watson, that we must deduce that Lambo and Scarlett have been discussing this very scenario. And what Scarlett was doing in this game was trying out the Lambo late game method. It was extremely similar, to say the least. She was definitely trying to use it against Neeb in their most recent late game duels. Now, this all could be a coincidence. Many players are looking at Lambo's strats and other players' strats, and ideas from different players cross-pollinate at an incredible rate all the time. But the simplest explanation is that Lambo and Scarlett have been cooking this up for Shopify Rebellion. Where this takes me, though, is, in my opinion, PvZ is at a fantastic place in the meta right now as a spectator sport, where both sides need crazy varied compositions to win in the late game, but at the same time, each have multiple chances to win early. This is kind of how Brood War wound up for a huge stretch of time, and I couldn't be happier about it. Let's enjoy it, because you never know how long it will last. As always, thanks to the new subscribers. It's you guys who really keep me going, seriously. So may your ultras always be ringed by banelings. And from my base to yours, Zugzwang out. To continue your Starcraft journey, Nova advises you to click the video in the upper rectangle. But Kerrigan warns you to watch your 6 and click the video in the bottom rectangle. Or you can stimpack your Starcraft experience. Subscribe to Zugzwang Starcraft. Just hit the circle. From my base to yours, Zugzwang out.